this occult, or Ritchie was into this occult thing, and he was calling up, having seances with Ouija boards, and it was getting dangerous, scary, and a little bit violent. And I thought, it's time for me to go. And we were rehearsing at SIR Studios in Hollywood, preparing a song to try to yet another attempt to get something that we recorded. And Ritchie was two doors down looking to put together Rainbow for the Rising lineup. And he had everything but a keyboard player. He had Cozy was there, Ronnie was there, and Jimmy and Ritchie. And he heard me playing Hammond through probably about 8 walls. I was not shy. And sent actually Jimmy Bain over to ask me if I wanted to try out with the band, audition for the band. And I was at a point with my own band that it didn't look like it was going anywhere, and it wouldn't have gone anywhere. So I said, too much politics, too much Gary Katz, too much cocaine, too much everything. And I said, yeah, go for it. And the rest is history.
Incredible stuff. And what stage were the band at that point? I think you said Cozy was there already. So had they started work on the new record?
Everybody was there, and we had Ritchie had tried. I heard stories. I didn't know these people, but I knew of them. I know that the guy from the Vanilla Fudge had auditioned, and the guy from Roxy Music, Eddie Jobson, had auditioned, and some Italian guy. But all the Hammond guys had like auditioned, and synth guys, and he didn't like any of them. And so I had never played hard rock music, but I could bluff my way into a convent as a cucumber salesman, and I was kind of bluffing, but it's loud, it's rough, it's heavy Hammond. I was aware of what Rick Wakeman was doing, and obviously aware of what John had played before. Made in Japan was all over the place, too. So I knew what he was kind of looking for. Like a little bit of fake classical, really loud, with a little prog touch. And the first stages, we went right on the road. We rehearsed for a while, and we did, I think, 9 or 10 shows in America. Not everybody knows this, but these are all like on YouTube. Actually, they're all bootlegged. Every single show we ever played. We played in Canada, we played in New York, we played in Detroit, we played in Florida, we played in Texas. I think we played 9 shows anyway, just to like warm up as a band. And after which we went to Munich and into Musicland Studios and did Rainbow Rising.
Incredible.
In about 10 minutes.
Wow. I love that kind of throwaway. We just did Rainbow Rising. I mean, one of the greatest albums of all time, still revered today. It's still up there.
That surprises me. I mean, that amazes me that's I mean, the respect that album gets 50 years later, nearly 50 years later, is astonishing to me, and that's great. Fantastic.
And in terms of the record itself, I mean, was it the sort of thing that Ritchie just came and said, this is what we're doing, or was it a band process, or how did that kind of thing work for that record?
He never told me what to play. He never told Cozy what to play. I think he sat with Ronnie. I wasn't there. He did Ronnie, the vocals he did with just Ronnie and Martin Birch. But my keyboard parts, it was just me and Martin Birch. Ritchie'd fuck off and go somewhere else and come back, and he'd like it or not like it, and he liked it. And there was no like dictatorial anything. And I've never got musically. We were on the same page. I mean, everybody. Jimmy was kicking ass on the bass. Cozy was a monster. Yeah. Ronnie was Ronnie. Ritchie was Ritchie at the top of his game. I was keeping up, I guess. Apparently, nobody ever told me I wasn't. And it was like rolling off a log. It was musically speaking, getting the music part done was, like I said, we made it in 10 minutes. It was no sweat. I heard later that there'd been some discussion about, and there always is, about the vocal melodies and exactly that. They probably spent the most time getting the vocals right. Mm-hmm. But the bottom tracks, we'd do 3 a day and come in and do keyboards. He wanted an intro for Terror Woman. Keyboard intro, and I did that in 2 hours with Martin. And he wanted a solo for A Light in the Black. I did that in 2 hours with Martin. That was one time he had made a suggestion. I played it in a high kind of your usual mini moog register, which is like up at the top register. He says, "How about if you do something? How about a 12 string? How about if you do something in a lower octave?" I said, "That's a great idea." So I did, and he came back. He says, "Yeah, I like that." And basically, good to go. So no sweat. The music was not the problem. There weren't any problems. So the music was not the problem. Music was like effortless.
And how did it, just touching on Tower of Woman, obviously it's the opening track, it's the first thing we hear. It's you on your keyboard, you synthesize that kind of thing. I mean, you say you were asked to write something. Was it just off the top of your head? Was it kind of pre-planned? How did it go?
Just free form off the top of my head. The hardest part was I'd played this improv piece. Rainbow was all about improvisation. If you've heard the live albums on stage, of course, but then there's 80 variations, 80 live recordings from that tour, the 76. I never played the same thing twice, and I still haven't to this day played the same thing twice in my life. I don't learn parts, and the tricky bit was getting something that I like. And the tricky bit, because we didn't work like these days, you'd work with a click track, or some kind of metronome or a drummer or something. It was just free form, loose time. The tricky part was doubling it, because it was too many moves, and that's what took the most time. Getting the first mini move with a little melody in it, that was easy. And then Bert said, "Why don't we do a little?" I said, "I know what you want." And he said, so putting the second one, and that took the most time, because there was no pattern. I just had to like read my own mind and get it, but we got it. It was about 2 hours.
Wow. Phenomenal stuff. And as you mentioned there, I mean, you were with the band for, I think, about 3 years, weren't you? And the music wasn't the problem, but the other side of it. I mean, you're a bit younger than the rest of the guys. I mean, how was that dynamic?
Well, me being oblivious, it wasn't really much of a dynamic on as long as we were playing, everything was cool. If we weren't playing, I didn't really have much to say to anybody, except for Jimmy. Jimmy and me were buddies, and Ronnie and I got along really, really well. But we were like the Americans, and this band was Ronnie and me, and this band was very much Americans against the Brits, as it were. And Cozy and Ritchie were like ultra British. And Ronnie is from upstate New York, and I knew Ronnie before I met him. I knew him. This is like an American guy, and he's older than me, but still, he's like an uncle.
Yeah.
So we got along fine. The dynamic in the band, show up, do your job. I got fired a couple of times, and then hired back. And the third time, I just had enough of the nonsense. I just left in the middle of the Long Live Rock and Roll album. There was some shenanigans. I just hit the road in the middle of the night and got out of there.
There you go. You mentioned Ronnie there. I mean, absolute legend, iconic voice. I mean, not a voice like it in the world of rock. I mean, what was he like as a person and someone to work with? And what was it like watching him on stage when he was belting out these
classics? I think
classics?
I was there the first time he threw the devil horns. Actually,
wow.
I think I was on stage. I'm not sure. A lot of people will say that they've been that they were the first person to whatever. I think 40 million people will say that they saw the planes hit the Twin Towers, in a city of 8 million. But whatever, I will maintain to this day that I was on stage with the first time Ronnie threw the devil horns. He's a great guy. If you saw him in interviews, that's the way he was. Straight ahead, pretty much dead honest. He gave you his opinion the way he called him like he saw him. He could be. He could be bitchy like everybody can. Mostly, really a gentleman. He's an Italian fella, Italian American, from upstate New York. They have this. They're very polite, and even if he's about to stab you in the back, he's not swearing at you. They have this gentlemanly air about him. He was a real gentleman, and he was always lovely to me. And Wendy, his wife, she was with him from the early days. I don't think they were married at the time, but she was with us the whole time, in the studio, on the road, in the studio, on the Rising tour, and then in the Long Live Rock and Roll sessions, and in the Rising sessions. But Wendy was always there, and she was great too. They were just great people.
Fantastic stuff. And you mentioned some shenanigans around you leaving. What was it that actually led to you leaving? And was there any regrets afterwards that you'd left?
From their side, I think so. They had to look all over the place to get a replacement. Hell no, I was happy to get out of there. There's some crazy shit. They were into this occult, or Ritchie was into this occult thing, and he was calling up, having seances with Ouija boards, and it was getting dangerous, scary, and a little bit violent. And I thought it's time for me to go. And I don't want to say much more about it. It's pretty much been documented, and I regret anything I might have said about it when I was a lot younger, but it's nobody's business. But call it a major personality clash. I mean, and as one of the only 4 Rainbow members to ever, I mean, there have been, what, 40 of us. I think there's been quite a series of major personality clashes over the years. So I don't want to get into that. That guy's a great guitar player.